Good afternoon. I would like to start my talk with a very strong statement that when we're living in India, we can't escape caste. And though measures have been taken to eradicate caste, and there's been a lot of resistance against caste in India nowadays, it's still an unescapable reality that caste is everywhere. And classical dance, unfortunately, is no exception to that. Um, uh, for as far back as documentation goes, um, classical dance has been the origins of classical dance have come from a community called the Isai Vellalar community, which was a very talented and a very talented lower caste group of individuals, of artists, to which Devadasis belonged. The Devdasi, the word literally translates as Deva Dasi, which is Deva as in God and Dasi as in servant. So they were servants of the gods. They used to perform their dance form in the temples and also offer other services to the temple. These women were very educated and very, very well respected at the time of their peak popularity and their peak um, respectability. They were educated, they were able to receive land grants, they were not required to be married, they were considered to be auspicious, forever auspicious, because they were symbolically dedicated to the temples and therefore married to the deity. So they weren't required to be married to mortal beings, which also gave them quite a lot of sexual freedom, in the sense that they were allowed to have sexual alliances with patrons, although that was not the primary role, the primary relationship between the patron and the dancer. It was more about the patron being able to support the dancer and being able to give the dancer what she needs to enable her to be committed to the dance form, and to be able to practice the dance form without any distractions. And so this was the life of the Devadasi. She was very independent, and also had she wasn't required to even uh, any of the regular things that women of that time were required to do, which is get married, bear children, be in the house, all those things. These were very, very different women, and their lively sexual identity was never something that was scrutinized much until the British came. And when they did, when they saw this lively sexual identity of the Devadasis, I think it contrasted very, very starkly with the ideas of femininity and sexuality that women in the West, or rather the Victorian women, had. You can imagine the Devadasi dancing freely, wearing sensual saris, dancing about love and sexuality and devotion as if they were all the same thing, and not required to be married, not required to be domesticated or homely. And then you see the Victorian English woman at the time who was, um, I mean, if you visualize it, if you imagine the visual, it's, you would imagine corsets and bonnets and gowns and gloves. So there was a very stark difference. And I think that this idea of femininity that the Devadasis represented was deeply, deeply uncomfortable for the British. And so they opposed it by saying that the Devadasis were sexually unrestrained, the patrons were unrestrained, the Devadasi system was barbaric and uh, lacked control, basically. And the nationalists who were fighting the British, which these nationalists largely comprised of, um, I mean, I'm not saying exclusively, but they did comprise of upper caste men and women who were fighting the British. They were forced to respond to this allegation of the Devadasis being sexually unrestrained and the the natives being sexually unrestrained as opposed to the colonizers who considered themselves to be in control of their sexuality. And unfortunately, what happened was the response that the nationalists had was to sanitize, within quotes, sanitize the dance form. And one of the ways in which they did this was to change the content of the narratives of the dance form from sexuality and sensuality and stories about love. The contents, the focus shifted to bhakti or devotion. And another thing that happened was that the dance form was gradually and not vindictively, but definitely quite deliberately, the dance form was taken from the Devadasi community and handed over to what one of the nationalists, I'm quoting, given to girls of good families. And these girls of good families were basically girls from Brahmin families. And so this shift happened. And let me also just say that I don't mean to implicate the Brahmin community or wholly blame them for this shift that happened, because I think the fact that that the system was um, came under such scrutiny created a problem for the dance form itself, and it threatened the dance form survival. So I think what the people that call themselves the revivalists of dance, what they were trying to do was to save the dance form from possible extinction. Whether or not the dance form would have actually gone extinct is not something that anyone can really say. But I do want to make it clear that I'm not trying to completely demonize the Brahmin community here by saying that this happened. What I do think did happen was that there wasn't an acknowledgement of the consequence of taking a dance form away from a community and handing it over to another. That consequence, that wasn't really foreseen in a good enough manner, and perhaps the community of that time, they overlooked the possible ways to rehabilitate a community that you have displaced in such a large way. And I think that's where the problem began. And another thing that has happened now is that um, the dance community, not everybody, of course, I must say this, but there are people in the dance community that have been in the past so deeply uncomfortable with this history that over time, this history of Bharatanatyam itself has been reimagined. And as a dance teacher, as somebody who's researched on dance, I've come across various texts that are handed out to students of dance where they are given an outline of the history of Bharatanatyam, where this period of the Devadasis has been called a period of decline, has been called a brief period of the corruption of the dance form. And so its history really has been reimagined, where we have a mythical origin. We've tried to connect Bharatanatyam to the Natya Shastra. It is connected, but not the way that these history lessons are taught. Um, we've tried to connect it to Sanskrit. We have tried to draw false connections to the origins of Bharatanatyam to an upper caste origin. And by doing that, I think we've done a big disservice to history. We've done a big disservice to the Devadasi community, and it's an inaccurate explanation of where the dance form came from. So the history of Bharatanatyam itself has been reimagined to make it seem like it was always an upper caste dance form, that it was always related to the gods, and you know, we have Shiva who's supposed to be the creator of the dance form, and we've connected it, we've made some imaginary upper caste links to the dance form, and forgotten that the Devadasis were a very, very large chunk of the history of where Bharatanatyam began, and how the dance form has come to us. Having said that, so the history of the dance form itself can be called casteist in that manner, in the sense that there was a gradual Brahminical domination that happened. But at the same time, the narratives that have been used in the dance form, the content of the dance form itself, has continued to challenge the caste system. One of the most famous narratives that are performed, that is performed, is that of Nandanar, who is the low caste devotee of Shiva. And the other, uh, another way of challenging the caste system is this performance that I'm now going to present, which is another lower caste devotee of Shiva's who says, I see your beautiful face, but the rest of you I cannot see. Is it because I'm poor, or that I don't have knowledge of the Vedas? And he goes on to say that the entire world is singing your praises, but in this golden hued body of yours, is there a blemish in you that you wish to hide yourself from me? He continues to plead with Shiva, saying, can you please reveal yourself to me entirely, but I can only see bits and pieces of you. And he says, in the evening, when I come to the temple, just to catch a glimpse of you, there are so many people in front of me, which to me implies that he's not allowed to come into the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. So which is a privilege that is allowed to upper caste men and women. He says there are so many people in front of you that all I see is one ruby earring, and even that intoxicates me. And you give me a small mocking smile because even your multiple hands are covering each other, and I can't even see the hands properly. And in the evening processions, I am cowering and bending to just to see a little bit of you, but the snakes are covering your body, and all you show me is one foot. He pleads with Shiva to reveal himself completely, but does Shiva oblige his low caste devotee? Let's see.
முகத்தை காட்டிய தேகம் முழுமையும் கட்டத மூடே மந்திரம் ஏதையா முகத்தை காட்டிய தேகம் முழுமையும் கட்டத மூடே மந்திரம் ஏதையா முகத்தை காட்டிய தேகம் முழுமையோ காட்டாத மூடு மந்திரம் ஏதையா முகத்தை காட்டிய தேகம் முழுமையும் காட்டாத மூடு மந்திரம் ஏதையா முகத்தை காட்டிய தேகம் முழுமையும் காட்டாத ஜகத்தில் அதிகமாக அரூரில் வாசரே ஜகத்தில் அதிகமாக அரூரில் வாசரே செழித்த மேனியில் ஊனம் உண்டோயகே ஷரே செழித்த மேனியில் ஊனம் உண்டோயகே ஷரே ஜகத்தில் அதிகமாக அரூரில் வாசரே ஜகத்தில் அதிகமாக அரூரில் வாசரே ஜகத்தில் அதிகமாக அரூரில் வாசரே செழித்த மேனியில் ஊனம் உண்டோத்யாகே ஷரே செழித்த மேனியில் ஊனம் உண்டோத்யாகே ஷரே முகத்தை காட்டிய தேகம் முழுமையும் காட்டாத மூடு மந்திரம் ஏதையா ஏதையா ஐயா சாய ரக்ஷையில் வந்து செழிக்க பார்ப்போம் என்றால் 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 சாதணிந்த செவ்வந்து தோட்டை காட்டி மயக்கி சாதணிந்த செவ்வந்து தோட்டை காட்டி மயக்கி மாயா விதானம் உள்ள மந்தகாசத்துடனே மாயா விதானம் உள்ள மந்தகாசத்துடனே மாமழுவு வேண்டிய கரத்தை கூட மறைத்து மாமழுவு வேண்டிய கர கூத்தாடும் போது அங்கே குனிந்து பார்ப்போம் என்றார் குதித்து ஓடும் விதத்தை ஊற்று பார்த்தால் பசிகள் தீரும் பரவசமாக செய்யும் பணியால் மறைத்து கொண்டு ஒரு பதம் காட்டுவதல்ல கூத்தாடும் போது அங்கே குனிந்து பார்ப்போம் என்றார் கூத்தாடும் போது அங்கே குனிந்து பார்ப்போம் என்றார் குதித்து ஓடும் வேதத்தை ஊற்று பார்த்தால் பசி